For this assignment, I took a little bit of a different approach than what was required. This PowerPoint is a compilation of different data and research that shows the purpose behind PBIS, and it could be used during a PLC or for any other reason for a committee or just to inform the staff and teachers about the purpose of PBIS. Within this PowerPoint, we will introduce PBIS, discuss the history and data related to the PBIS nationwide, as well as the implications of the data and the relationship it can be used between PBIS and the school improvement plan. So first of all, what is positive behavior interventions and support? I embedded in here a Kagan strategy, which is a great way to get your staff working and to be able to model what's expected in the classroom. So as you can see in this situation, they would rally table and work in their groups, taking turns with a bubble map. After they have time to do that, they come back and you discuss their ideas. There are some core concepts when it comes to PBIS. McKevitt says that you must create common expectations. You must teach these expectations to the children. You must acknowledge behavior that meets the expectations, impose consequences for behavior that does not meet the expectations. And by consequences, it's important to know that it's not necessarily a punishment, or maybe instead it is ignoring behavior that is not deemed fit under the PBIS. And you always need to collect the data on the PBIS implementation to make sure that any decisions going forth, that it's working, and be able to tweak it as needed. Some very important points about the history of PBIS and highlighted are the things that I thought were most important. One being that the well-executed program will result in fewer disciplinary referrals than does a school that does not implement a PBIS program. And there is a plethora of data that supports that claim. And PBIS is a long-term approach. It's not a fast and quick and easy fix. It does take time, and it takes input not only from the staff, but the students, parents, all stakeholders need to be involved in the decision-making process. And it decreases time that is spent with students out of the classroom. So it encourages them to stay in the classroom where there's less time lost of instructional practice. And it also is aligned with the IDEA, the Individual with Disabilities Education Improvement Act of 2004. There are several research indicators. Vincent in 2011 states that schools engaged in school-wide PBIS support, the reductions in the discipline gap was statistically significantly smaller than in schools without a school-wide PBIS, which is what we just mentioned a moment ago. Those with a new plan saw an average decrease of 42% in office referrals in 1 year. And Barrett, 2008, states that PBIS is promoting positive changes in students and teachers' behaviors. It's building relationships and having those relationships positive both for the students and the staff. So then we talk about suspension and the effectiveness of suspension, and PBIS works on the opposite side of the suspension. So does it really work? No, not really. It's not effective for students who want to be in school. Repeated suspensions are not an effective form of school discipline. It gets the kids out of the classroom to where they can be in other dangers, trouble, and primarily they're just not learning at that time. Children who seem to get suspended repeatedly have little to no supervision at home, such as suspension being a free day. Those who receive free and reduced lunch are more likely to be suspended. So it becomes a Title I type program. Those schools that fall under those are generally going to have higher suspension rates than schools that are not primarily free and reduced lunch. And the majority of the schools in Polk County are Title I and do qualify the entire school for free and reduced lunch. And also students who come from single parent homes are suspended 2 to 4 times more often than those living in 2-parent homes. Sure, there's different research and we can make our own conclusions about why that is. But the data is there to support that that is a fact. Also, a lot of students who are suspended have lower grades. The students generally that it seems that get better grades are those that are better behaved. So how does PBIS contribute to student learning gains? So here's another embedded Kagan strategy. In this situation, I would ask a rally robin where you work with your face partner, taking turns to answer the question. And then the person with the darkest eyes speaks first. So I would let this occur, and then we would come back and we would discuss that. When we talk about the school-wide impact, a lot of school improvement plans are directly linked to PBIS. For instance, a lot of, in Polk County anyway, the school improvement plan, the goals correlate directly with maintaining and creating a supportive environment. A supportive environment is directly aligned with PBIS. So why is there a paradigm shift to PBIS nationwide? Here's another Kagan strategy, a think, pair, share. And I would just ask in that moment that they talk about that. And then again, you take all those answers and discuss those. Here's your PBIS tier triangle. And the top, which is the green part, should be no more than 10% of your entire student population. Whereas the green and the yellow, the two, tertiary and secondary, together should make no more than 25%. So that means generally 75% of your school's population are always in the primary prevention. That is the basis of where PBIS Tier 1 is. That is your school-wide PBIS. Your Tier 2 starts with the secondary, to where those students are still within the Tier 1 guidelines, but they need a little bit extra push. So now you have them on a Tier 2. And the Tier 3 is just like with the MTSS with academics, the behavior falls in that as well. They're getting all of the tiers as they go up. This is a fluid triangle, so you may have some students that are within the Tier 1 that move to Tier 2, and it could be for some reason, something, an outside environmental factor, something happens at home, a divorce, a split up, a dog died, a death of a parent or grandparent, perhaps. It could be something small like the death of a dog. It could be they had a bad day that day. So it's really gathering data and knowing your kids. Most importantly, it is the relationship you have with your students in order to be successful with the PBIS. So here's an example of what a school-wide PBIS monthly incentive could be. So you would have a PBIS committee, and they would determine what the school-wide incentives would be. And it's really good practice to go ahead and have students contribute to that and help with that, because PBIS isn't going to be effective if the students aren't willing to work for that. So for instance, you may want to do it, you could do it monthly, you might want to do it by grading period, or every month during the first grading period is the example here, that 75% of the time the students that are present and or excused, so if they have excused absences, it still counts, and they have 0 processed office disciplinary referrals. And each time you want to move that up a little bit. So the second grading period, every month on that grading period, you're looking for 80% of the time for attendance, that they're there. Excused still counts, no disciplinary referrals. The difference between second and third grading period, it goes up another 5%, as well as in the fourth, you're looking at 90%. We want our kids to be there all the time. So we are incentivizing them to follow the school-wide expectations. They don't get any referrals, and they're there just as we want them to be. So there are 2 different roles, and I made this because schools do sometimes have a behavior interventionist, and that was a push for in Polk County. So there's teacher roles and there's behavior interventionist roles. And the teacher role, you can have your classroom PBIS that also needs to coincide with the school-wide PBIS. And the behavior interventionist is there as a support staff for the teachers themselves. This is something that I had made a couple years ago, and I wanted to include this. This is something, it's a daily incentive, a golden ticket. So teachers were asked to go ahead and use these. They can award it to students. And it went with SWAG, which for the school I was at, that was our school motto. And they could receive the golden ticket for academic achievement, excellence. They were safe and engaged. They were willing and ready to achieve greatness. they were punctual and prepared, and they gave their personal best. There's a comment area if they wanted to make a comment, they being the teacher, and then the teacher signs it. And we use those for different drawings. We actually had a PBIS store. For somebody just starting off, that's could be difficult, but it could be as easy as recognizing them on the announcements. You have to make sure when you're doing something like this that you give the expectations not only to the students, but that the teachers and the staff are well versed in those expectations as well. This was something that for those schools that have the behavior interventionist, this is the job responsibilities. So there's no underlying cause of any not good feelings. So everybody's fully aware of what the behavior interventionist is supposed to do. Sometimes this is now consumed up by an AP2. Some schools don't have a behavior interventionist. That might be the Title I person, but it's really important that the staff know that someone in this type of role, it's what their responsibilities are, and ultimately it's to do what's best for the students. And then on this slide, I have a needs and/or concerns, and just if you have any questions. So again, this is a PowerPoint that can be used to introduce PBIS for a new school that's never done it. It can be a refresher course. It can be used for new staff coming in so they understand. It can be tweaked any way that fits whatever the school's needs are. But I think it's really important to touch base on the history and how PBIS involves the school improvement plan, as well as the expectations, and really where our goals are and how we want our kids to behave. A lot of times people think PBIS is a way for rewarding kids for doing what they're supposed to. In essence, I guess you could see that, see it like that. But most importantly, PBS is a way to curve the behaviors into what we want and what we need in our classrooms so we can be successful through our teaching. Thank you.